Happy Pride. So thank you all for coming out. This is our 7th day of fun-filled Pride, rainbow-infused fun and festivities. We have had, up to this point, over 450 people attending our Pride Week. Less than 2 years ago, Springfield hadn't had a Pride in nearly a decade. A year and a half ago, I reached out to Holly Richardson and, speaking a mile a minute, said, you know, I'm pretty gay and we should probably have some more gay things in Springfield. And then we slowly started recruiting our ragtag, brilliant, amazing crew of folks to cause trouble, rave rainbows, wear high heels, get into fights, and be proud while doing it. And folks work together, and this now, not only did we started last year with 3 events, we are now at 7, reaching 8, thank you, 8 events, reaching over 450 people. We've had drag performers, we've had spoken word artists, we've had allies, we've had elected officials, we've had activists, we've had middle class folks, we've had upper middle class folks, we've had white folks, we've had the future generation, we've had the past generation. Everyone has come together to say we are proud, we are out, and we are part of this community. And so what I'm excited about is that as we finish up our week, we invite all of you not only to be part of this movement till tomorrow, but we invite you to be part of this movement from this point forward. That we are no longer going to be invisible, that we no longer are going to be silent, that together we're going to speak with one voice, full of diversity, full of intersectionality, that says we are out, we are proud, and we are part of Springfield. With that being said, I want to thank our panelists for coming, but most importantly, I want to thank the folks who showed up today. It has been a long week, and some folks are tired. Both the committee and our members who enjoyed themselves. But thank you all for coming out. Without you, we wouldn't have a Pride, and without you, we wouldn't have a community. I also want to thank our sponsors, Mass Equality, the ACLU of Massachusetts, the Glenn and Chris Prouctions, the first married couple of Agawam, Outnow, who's been a great sponsor, lover, engager, and the greatest and only youth LGBT organization in Springfield. Am I missing anyone?
Tapestry.
And Tapestry House, thank you so much. Without them, we actually couldn't put this on. Oh, and if you haven't gone downtown, if you haven't been there in a while, and some folks haven't, if you would like, if you look up while you're walking, you will see wonderful rainbow flags. This is the second time in history we have ever adorned the streets of Springfield with rainbow flags. So we should get a round of applause for that. Yes, and we have, as you said, we have a big old flag on City Hall as well. So let's get a round of applause for that. So we cannot do this without you. So if you have some time, / a year commitment, or some dollars, or you just want to show up to our events, please sign up for our email, join our board, or feel free to donate. We cannot do this without you. We need your support. Please, without your dollars, without your investment, both your physical presence or your spirit, without your time, we cannot do that. Lastly, before I move on, I also just want to acknowledge that we acknowledge all elected officials and campaigns that come out in support of our community. Not that we're endorsing them, but we do speak for the people and give them a shout out at least for endorsing us and being proud of being supporters of our community. And we do have a representative here from the Elizabeth Warren campaign. If you'd stand up, Jeremiah. Jeremiah is more than happy to talk to you about Elizabeth Warren's stances on LGBT issues and connect with you. But I'm just really proud that over this week we have had elected officials and those running for office come out. And we need to hold them even more accountable. And it's not enough that they show up, it's that they actually are good on our issues. That part of being vocal and not being silent, is holding people accountable that represent our community. And so it is very exciting that throughout the week, we have had multiple folks show up, and even more exciting that we have Elizabeth Warren's campaign here, who personally I think is really great on LGBT issues, so that's my little plug. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our esteemed first speaker, who I could not say any more positive things about, but I will try very quickly. What I know her as is this amazing, brilliant diva who, when I ran for office, found me. So too often I'm door knocking, harassing people, asking for money. That's what politicians do, or want to be politicians. That's what I was at the time. And she found me, and she said, I like who you are, and I want to get to know you, and I want my neighborhood to get to know you. So she went door knocking, moved here from Seattle, didn't know anyone, found me, went to her neighborhood and said, I think you all should meet this guy, he's kind of cool. Didn't know me from a hole in the wall, and did all of this because she believes in something greater, that we all are tied in a garment of mutuality, and that we all deserve full equality. And she did that without any push from us, without any ask. She did that because she deeply believes that. And that is why I am proud that she's part of our committee. I am proud of who she is. But she is not only a badass organizer and resident of Ward 6 Forest Park, she is also a brilliant, brilliant academic who we are lucky to have in this area, who studies issues that some folks don't want to talk about and make others uncomfortable. But she does it with a brilliance and a finesse that makes it just actually incredible to listen to her. She's an author, she is married, she's part of a couple, she's part of our community. I can't say enough about her. If we could all welcome Robin D'Angelo, Dr. D'Angelo, to the stage to start our panel. Thank you so much.
No pressure there. But it is really fun to be facing such a friendly crowd. I don't usually face a crowd with this kind of enthusiasm that is listening to the kinds of things that we're here to talk about, which is really issues of oppression and equality and inequality. And I want to, do most people know why we celebrate Pride in June? Yeah, Stonewall. Okay. So, and I think it's really important that we just take a moment to remember what Stonewall was about. And that was, although it wasn't certainly the first time that queer people had fought back, it was kind of that moment that's considered to have really ignited something in the consciousness of people, and it kind of took off, and we don't have to take this anymore. And I think it's also really important that it was Black and Latino drag queens in, among other people, but primarily, and that often gets kind of overlooked. Right? Who was really there that night that kicked that off? And my job tonight is to kind of frame the discussion. So we've called this "What's Your Position?" because we thought that would be nice and provocative and get you kind of wanting to find out. But it's a slightly less maybe sexy than that sounds. So I'm going to start with a question, and Anika and Holly cannot answer it. So when did women get the right to vote in the U.S.?
1920.
All right, 1920. So I'm going to pause for a minute, and then I'm going to ask you, which women? Okay. So when I was taught that women got the right to vote, I was taught that women, as if white women represented all women. Right? And that's an example of what we're really wanting to address tonight when we talk about what's your position. They were oppressed as women, but they were privileged as white women. And actually, Elizabeth Cady Stanton and some other suffragettes actually spoke out against Black people in general getting the right to vote. So it's important to look at where do we experience oppression, but where might we be colluding in the oppression of somebody else. Sometimes when I do education with young people in, say, schools in Springfield, students of color will say, I thought white people were gay. I didn't know people of color was gay. Have anybody ever come across that? And that's because the face of the gay community is often a white male face, right? And when you hear those stats like, oh, you know, the gay people have a lot of disposable income, and you know that's a great demographic to market if you're trying to make money. Those statistics are based on white gay men. And the experience of gay women, women of color, people with children, single parents, it's a very different experience. And so we want to really ask people to be willing to grapple with all of the ways that these social groups that we're members in come together, right? So we live in a society that tells us not to focus on social groups, right? And to just look at everybody as an individual. And yet, particularly if we're queer, we know that it matters. That we don't all get seen as individuals. That those key identities shape our lives. It matters whether you're female or male. It matters if you're rich or poor. It matters if you're white or a person of color. It matters if you're gay or straight. And so what's your position is our kind of wanting to open a conversation about how all of these different positions play out. And one of the things, I'll be honest, that the Springfield Pride Committee is so thrilled about is how diverse the Pride celebrations are here in Springfield. In every kind of way. When Ahmad said ragtag crew, he said that with affection, but he meant there's incredible diversity on the committee in terms of race, in terms of class, in terms of gender identity, in terms of ability. I, for example, I'm a bisexual woman, but my partner is a male, and I have the privilege of marrying him and having that being federally recognized. So I live my life with heterosexual privilege, and it's really important not to downplay that, but to actually acknowledge that, own that, and then use that to open the door for other people. So I think that's kind of some of the things we're hoping that you'll think about and that you'll engage with today.
You want me to introduce the second person?
Yes.
I'm going quick. So with that, I'm sorry. I don't know how to be any less gay. I try sometimes. I'm just not very good at that. With that being said, we have our next speaker is an amazing activist, author, poet, who helps educator, who helps really bring one of the most meaningful connections to this work around disability and sexuality, among many other things that she brings to the table. Too often, sexuality is relegated to a certain population of folks. But the truth is that we are incredibly diverse on a race level, gender level, ability level, and we have lots of work that we need to do to ensure that our community is open and affirming of all of our members and all the people that are connected to that. And with that said, Martina is one of the most brilliant poets I know who helps bring in those things together. So if we can give her a round of applause. And thank you so much for being here. Okay. Can everyone hear me? Is this working?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, that's good. Also, I'm just going to say one announcement. I know I have a social media. That's what that's for. You can follow along. Did you ever see that?
Yeah.
Is that working? Good.
Perfect.
I of course can talk, and you can ask me questions. If you don't understand what I say at the end of the thing, then the question answer me. Just have to repeat myself. I won't yell at you. Nothing will blow up. Nothing will blow up, I promise. I promise not to yell. And then I have you ask. It's really okay. And we can all get over it. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. What's your position? I've been thinking about that question for a little over a month. Since I was college, I've been doing for years, and so I was a business worker. Ask me to build a camp. I've decided my position is to the fact that I and other people like me has conflict or that identity do exist, have right to do so on this planet. As you can see, I do not belong to any one marginalized community as well as a few non-marginalized ones. I proudly all follow these no particular order. A woman, African American, a person with a disability, Christian and American, and bisexual. I see this correct my names. It's after the next question, you answer this question, what are you first? Is it likely to get a punch in the mouth at the end? Those of you in the audience who are doing your puppy, not to get the idea, am I actually hitting someone? You might not pass it to them. However, even if I don't physically harm
no more likely scenario, I swear I'm going to tell them that I want to. Although, I'm going to confess to you that the more often I've asked that question, the less likely that seems like the right response. I'll tell you why. One, because that question is so violating its nature. Are we okay? I almost feel physically harmed, even though the question didn't lay a finger on me, and then I wants to cut me. It's agony, too. Because the amazing Black gay filmmaker Marlon Riggs, who died in the AIDS pandemic, and before I continued, sent his magnificent film, Untied, which you shall see, what he wishes his response to this question would have been. What if speaking language his brother could understand? What would he choose? His right eye or his left eye? Replace male parts with female parts, and I said exactly the same way, and sadly, and still have the same conversation almost over and over a few years later. This needs to stop. Why do people I consider progressive and racial friends think it's somehow alright to call stupid things gay? Why do women's organizations want to be in the office and not once accessible? Why I love LGBT groups frequently run and also taken by male issues? Why am I too frequently one of my handful of non-faces at this way resident when LGBT pride? This is sad. This is wrong. This is what my life, my work, and my existence is about change. Why? Because I've gone around the aforementioned space. I have a right to be in every one of them. Absolutely off of the organization and making it either physically impossible or mostly unsafe for me to participate. That's my position. And I expect, demand, and unfortunately see that I exist. Furthermore, I will compel you to not only other people from non-homogenous identity groups exist and to acknowledge they have right to exist and participate and claim their full selves, whether or not you approve. This is what we'll be doing until there's no more breath in this body, or as I hope as the case, until it's all about enough to make it unnecessary.
Wow, sorry, I didn't know how to, I took a moment to take that in. That was pretty incredible, both in the nature that we can bring that many folks together to have this conversation so that we can hear everybody in their voice, but too how powerful of a statement that was. Thank you so much, that was beautiful, thank you. So we're now going to be blessed with a performance from the amazing, the incredible, the dynamic, who we're lucky to get again, Raging Grammys. So we one of the most beautiful things I think about our pride and what we bring to the table as the performers come down is that we're a multi-generational pride. The truth is that we are proud of the people who come before us, the people who bear the burdens before it was easy, those who stand up together with us now, and those who will come in the future. But without the folks who've done the work before, we couldn't be here. Without standing on the shoulders of giants, we couldn't have the future we currently have. So thank you so much for being here. Would you like me to move the mic in front of you, ladies? You don't need the mic? All right now. All right. So thank you so much. We can give them one last round of applause. So I don't know if you have like,
Oh, yeah.
oh, so I don't, so you have plenty of material for like our ending. All right. Just checking.
Going to the chapel and we're gonna get married. Going to the chapel and we're gonna get married. Gee, I really love you and we're gonna get married. Going to the chapel of love. First day is great. Oh, 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 that's moved ahead. March will soon bring forth that case and shall be read. Spain, Belgium, Netherlands, and Canada too. The South Africa gives rights to me and you. And so we're going to the chapel and we're gonna get married. Going to the chapel and we're gonna get married. Gee, I really love you and we're gonna get married. Going to the chapel of love.
Ladies, I think you are badass. Thank you so much for that. Those were pretty incredible. I hope that we all can share that kind of passion for all the work we do for generations to come. So thank you so much for showing us that love and entertainment is infused in being political. And with that being said, again, I'm lucky enough to know these folks. I'm very privileged in this way that I am surrounded by folks who believe in a better world, but also believe in the infusion of art and poetry and music into our movement. And that's what this has become. As we become more proud of who we are, we have started a movement of being not silent, but being vocal. And this next speaker is just that, who not only has a beautiful voice in general, but often speaks with this velvet tongue around amazing poetry, who makes me see things in ways that I've never seen before. He performed on our open mic night and literally blew me away. So it was one of the few times that I got to see him perform, and I was moved. Moved in ways that I just haven't been in a very long time. And I'm proud that it's happening here in Springfield, that it's a young man of color who is proud of who he is and where he comes from, but that he is in my life. And so I'm lucky on that. And so I love to welcome Tay, who is just all around badass, part of Outnow, poet, spoken word artist, and just amazing person in general. Thank you so much for being here, and welcome him to the stage.
Hi, how's it going?
Hey, Jay.
I'm really nervous, so no judgment, okay?
How you doing?
I'm good, I'm good. Okay, so I'd like to start off by saying, like I said, I am a performance poet, I do spoken word, and being black and gay, it's really hard. It's really hard to find places where my work will be respected or that it will be heard, you know? So I'm going to start off with a piece before I say anything else. It's untitled and it's not done, but it's a piece. It was a rainy morning in Springfield City's downtown where I was around pounding pavement feet to ground where my 10 toes, heels, and soles were making a steady cadenced beat. When it came to me, right now I'm disconnected from the why. I don't remember how I got here. I walk these rainy streets day to day doing the mundane, but why? What am I living for? It seems as if the questions get higher than the puddles surrounding me to the point I could drown. I'm calm, but can you understand it? I feel like I'm really from another planet, but no, we can see it if we find our eyes. It seems as though I'm falling through crowded skies. I don't pretend I can do anything, but I'm willing to try it all. That right there. You guys clapped for me, you guys loved it, and it's hard for me to find that. And I feel the way I grew up, mostly poor, I didn't really have much, and my poetry was my way to express myself. It was an outlet for me. And I'm 21 now, so I can say I've been performing for like 3 or 4 years. And, obviously, me being gay, I write about things that relate to me. And I go to venues, I go to open mics, and I read my work, and I don't get that response all the time. So being a part of this community and performing for you guys, it's a beautiful thing. It's wonderful, and I don't know what word I'm looking for, but I'd like for, little black kids after me to feel like, I am their idol. I'd like them to have the strength to perform for people who might not, want to hear it, and, either way. And I want them to perform for you guys, knowing that, you're going to accept it, knowing that you're going to love it, show them that respect. So, I'm done talking now.
I told you he speaks and I kind of melt. It's just so beautiful. So thank you for sharing your art. Thank you for sharing it with us. Our next speaker, before our next speaker speaks or goes on, I'm very lucky. Well, growing up in here in Springfield, I came out at 18, but I was a colorful young person who most folks didn't have the resources to support, meaning that I was different, I was sometimes intellectually gifted, socially awkward, super gay, but we didn't have terms for that. Those aren't the words we used. And I was alone. And to be honest, at a young age, I was bullied here in Springfield. And at 12, I contemplated and attempted suicide. And despite all of that, I had family that ended up standing up for me and with me. So I'm lucky that my mother, who may not have known the right words, and who didn't always do it perfectly, always stood by my side and supported me. And she is here tonight, Kim Rivera. And I say that because family is important. Both the biological families that we have, but the families that we create. And our next speaker is the son of a really amazing man who is great, and I appreciate, who also is a Ward 6 resident, Forest Park resident. But in his own right, I've heard nothing but incredible things. And this young man, I think, is great because he's here to talk about his experience. And there's nothing stronger than family. Whether we make it, we choose it, or it's part of our growing up. There's nothing stronger than the bond that ties. And so I'm glad that he's here, that he accepted the invitation, and I'm really looking forward to all the great things he has to say. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce Austin Joseph.
Press the bottom button. Button on the bottom once.
Hello. Hello. So, as you have heard, my name is Austin Joseph, and I am the son of 2 gay men. Growing up, I feel as though I've been incredibly privileged. However, I did have those conversations with my fathers, where, on a blistery, winter day, my fathers had sat me down and said, Austin, we know you're straight, and we just want to say that we still love you. And that we accept you for who you are. And I gotta say, I've grown in a community that has fostered diversity, and has accepted certain, components of everyday lives that may have not been so tolerable. My father had brought my father Jared, my father's name are Jared and Todd, had brought up a story once where he said, Austin, you haven't really been bringing friends over lately, and we were curious to know, is it because there's a gay flag on our porch? And I said, no, God, no, definitely not. In fact, a lot of my friends' parents are gay. And I mean, that's to say that we live in Massachusetts, and it's relatively a generally accepted thing. And how grateful, I suppose, that is for me. And me personally, I can introduce into what my occupation is. I work in agriculture, and in fact, I work for a seed bank called Grow Seed in Coleraine, Massachusetts. And what we really try to do is propagate, diverse crops. From 1900 to 1983, we've lost 80% of the world's food stock in terms of diversity in seed. And I gotta say, if it wasn't for having parents that pushed me, and if it wasn't for having a community that understood, it's okay to be different, and certainly that different is good, and different helps us, to be resilient. You have one compound that can destroy entire, but if we have a community that is receptive to various trials and tribulations, then we too can come together and be greater as a whole than we would be as this entity that is consistent and something that we're supposed to fit into. And certainly that has been sort of my perspective. And yeah, I guess that's all I have to say. Thank you.
I think I read once that if the consequence of equal marriage and LGBT folks having children are people like him, then we should be having more children, and maybe other folks should be having less. But that's not a statement for Springfield Pride. That was a moderate statement. It's really beautiful, and I think it's really wonderful and a testament to our community that we really do build love. And I love that you had to come out as straight, and that's an amazing, both troubling thing that you actually have to do that, but it's also really beautiful that he, and how old are you? 20, is having those kind of conversations across places, and both doing that in the agricultural world, but even doing that here in Springfield. So thank you so much for doing that, and I'm kind of, it's just really sweet. I love when families can be supportive, whether they're straight allies, and that's what I will say as to introduce this next person. One of the things that we also need people to do is that we encourage our LGBT community to come out. That means a lot that we are out, that we are vocal, that we are visible. But the truth is, without our allies coming out, we are alone. And we need them to step up, come out, and be in support of us. That love is a two-way street. For some people, it's more than 2 ways, but in the most traditional sense, it's a two-way street. And we want our allies to step up and step beside us as we handle these really troubling issues. Malcolm is more than just that. Malcolm is an ally, not just on LGBT issues, but on issues across the spectrum. He does incredible work in this community, helping to literally change the landscape by giving folks a voice that are the most marginalized, particularly when it comes to foreclosures and other issues like that. I am lucky enough to have met him, to have worked with him, to see what he does firsthand, and the humility that comes with great work. And he shows that so much so. And even on top of all that, he fits time in to be an incredible ally to this community. So without further ado, I introduce Malcolm Chu. Thank you.
So it's interesting, and I thank you for that introduction. And it's interesting because one of the reasons why I wanted to kind of step up and be here when Holly asked me is that, I don't feel like I've been enough of an ally in a lot of ways. And I'll talk a little bit about my lived experience. And I think I've been searching for ways to be an ally since I was 10. and I didn't always know how. So Holly reached out to me and she wrote me this email and she said, you know, would you be an ally on this panel? And she sent me a list of all the other people on the panel, and Austin was on there, and Austin's description was 20-year-old male with 2 gay dads. And I wrote back to Holly after a couple of days and I said, Holly, I'd love to be an ally. I don't think it actually, you know, for me, it doesn't change the fact that I'm an ally, but if you like, I can put on there as well that I have 2 gay mothers. Because that's been my experience. When my mother came out to us when I was 10, after my parents separated. And I'll be honest, for the first 6 or 7 years, I didn't understand what that meant. I didn't understand how to relate to that. I didn't understand, you know, I would hear classmates in high school say, you know, I'm lesbian or I'm gay, and my thought immediately would be like, wait, no, that's what people do when they get older, because that was my experience with my mother, right? But I've had to check myself since then, right? Of realizing, wait a minute, that's a load of bullshit, right? I mean, that's my experience with my mother is not the same experience with everybody else. And I think as I've emerged to well, let me quickly just say something about my mother. My mother is white and Jewish. My father is Chinese. My mother, as well as my father, raised me with a really critical and conscious understanding that I'm multiracial and biracial. And my lived experience, if you ask, you know, the people in my life, is I understand my lived experience in the way that I walk in this world and the way that people interact with me as a person of color and as a man of color, while also being biracial. And that, my mother's also, she's a socialist, she's a community activist, she's probably the fearless educator in my life that's kind of pushed me where I am. And what's been, I think one of the things as I've kind of embraced my mother and her partner Jane, or my mother Jane, who I've lived with since I was 11, has been kind of seeing how Jane is a white woman who grew up with a lot of privilege, and I have developed this relationship where, you know, we push each other on queer issues and we push each other on race issues. Because I find myself saying to her all the time, you're missing this. Like, what's going on here, right? Like, you're missing the fact that these class and race issues. And she finds herself saying to me, well, you're missing these issues, right? And we go back and forth. And I think that, you know, in hearing folks talk and hearing Robin kind of talk about that, you know, from my experience in my life, you know, and having really multiple identities across my entire family, and kind of learning that that's a beautiful thing. Learning that takes, that gives me the opportunity and the privilege to find ways to be an ally or an advocate or my own self-advocate on so many different issues across the board. And you know, so I think, well, I think I strive to be an ally. I think one of the things that excited me about being here is that it wasn't until I was 17 or 18 or 19 that I was fully comfortable with saying I had 2 gay moms, right? Like really being comfortable with that. And since then, I've really kind of thought a lot about what does it now mean to be an ally. Because I've given, you know, I've given my mother and Jane love and support from day one. But now it's about finding ways to put that out into the world, right? About challenging my friends that I grew up with, about challenging the people that I come into contact with every single day. And I really welcome the opportunity to do that and hope that I can continue to be an ally moving forward. So.
So we're now at the part of our program where the audience also gets to participate. Part of these dialogues that we're trying to create is just that, a dialogue. And just like love is a multi-way street, not just 2-way street, We want to make sure that we are letting the community ask questions, pose issues and concerns. So the main concept of this panel is really for us, as Robin said so eloquently, to really deal with the intersectionalities of what we are. That we are so much more than just one thing. And as Martina said, we're not, what do we put first is not the question, but who we are in the whole spectrum and how we are in total people is the question. So the question I'm posing to both the panel and the audience is, how do you handle having these multiple identities? And how do people treat you when you challenge them that you are more than just a progressive, more than just bisexual, more than a person with disabilities, more than trans, more than gay? How does that feel and how do you respond? So I'm gonna put the mic, I can either pass you the mic or you can come down here and talk. But I'd love for someone on the panel to start us off, someone take this, and then we'd love to have some audience members come down and chat. So someone want to take this first?
I tell people who I am when they first meet me. This is especially true. I discovered your own safety when you date someone. Do not forget to mention something that they're going to find out later from someone else. Do not do this. It's bad for you. It's bad for your relationship. It's bad for your safety. I tell a story during this time. Okay. I used to tell people I was bisexual on the third day I had with them. Day number 3 was when I told them that. And then it turned out that I found out one day that she was day number 1 policy. I had no shoes that day because day number 3 happened with this boy I was an intern with when he was an intern, I was an intern. He was pretty progressive, being rude and just similar together. And I was staying in front of my Oakland, and he lived in San Francisco. And he goes, come to San Francisco. I'll come pick you up, I'll take you back. He freaked out in a subway restaurant and left me there. I had no idea how to get back. I had to call my roommate. I never come to Oakland to get me. And so, since that day forward, it's the first day, like, it's like the first second sentence. It's like, by the way, you should know this is what's going on. And if you don't like it, there's your door, thank you.
My name is Maggie. I'm from Rise. I'm a member from there. And my first time seeing the LGBT community was in high school. I was only like 16 years old, and I got invited to a gay straight alliance. I didn't know what it was, and it scared me at first because they're like, oh yeah, come to GSA. I'm like, okay, it sounds cool. And I got in there, and there's a room full of lesbians, gay guys, and bisexuals, and I walk in the room, and these 6 lesbians walk to me, and they're like, oh, come here, I want to touch you. I'm like, yo, back up. I was scared at first because I didn't know anything about it. But once I got used to the group and they started bringing me to the Northampton Pride March and the Boston Pride March, I actually got used to it. Even though I'm a straight person myself, I got used to being around gay people, and I actually learned how cool they were to be around, and that they're a lot of fun, especially gay guys. They're fun to be around because you can bring them shopping with you. Girls love that. You can get a guy to go shopping with you instead of a guy saying, I don't want to go shopping. And the gay guy's like, oh, let's go shopping. Let's go look for good stuff. I mean, I love the gay community. It's awesome. My older sister is bisexual. My second youngest sister is bisexual. And my youngest sister is bisexual. And I'm like the only straight one in the family. But I constantly get confused of being a transgender because I'm a tomboy, and they say, oh, that's the same thing as being a transgender. It's like, no, it's not. I'm not trying to be a guy. I just dress like one because that's how I feel comfortable. And being around the gay community, it's been awesome, and Arise supports it. And I just love coming to the events, and Ahmad's been awesome coming to all events. The first event, meeting all the drag queens, they were awesome. They were so fierce on stage, and half of them I couldn't really even tell they were guys. It was like, oh my god, this is like the coolest thing I've ever seen. I've never been to a drag show, and it was like, wow. So I know I'm definitely gonna come back every year and support you guys. Thanks.
It's amazing the things that we can do by being out is that we not only create safe spaces for ourselves, we create safe spaces for folks that we never think about, who are challenging their own questions and trying to be different. And so it's wonderful when we come out. So with that being said, how do we basically come out? Oh, do you have something you're ready to?
Well, I did want to speak to the question, which was how do you kind of manage all of your identities in a way? So for me, I think it's really critical to remember that I am not just one thing or another, but that I occupy kind of these multiple identities, and they play out in different ways in different contexts. So for example, on the Pride Committee, for me, we were talking earlier about the $10 word of the night is salient, which means kind of what's right on top, what's right in front in my consciousness. In that committee, the most salient identities for me are that I am white, and that I'm middle class, and that I'm married to a man and have that privilege. And I have to be really thoughtful about the way that I engage in that group, and what are the things that I might be taking for granted, or assumptions that I'm making, or ways that I may be invalidating people who don't have access to the resources that I have. I have to be thoughtful about those identities. If I'm at work on my campus and I'm around a group of white men, I would sure hope that they're thoughtful about sexism and the ways that they may be, because in that context, a very salient identity for me would be being female, right? Because then I'm in a less powerful position. So these kind of dynamics of power and access to resources play out. We may be queer and a person of color, but still have ability privilege, right? So I just like to ask people, how is classism playing out in the queer community? How is racism playing out? How is ableism playing out? And some of us will be able to answer that, and some of us won't be able to answer that, and then we need to keep our eyes open and pay attention. So it's consciousness, it's being willing. It's really easy for me to identify where I've been oppressed in my life. It's really been hard for me to acknowledge where I've been privileged. That's the place where I have the blinders, and to be willing to get feedback and be receptive to the reality that, hey, I could be progressive and I could be oppressed as a woman, but I still can be privileged and stomping on someone else's toes somewhere else. So that's how I manage it.
Thank you. I think brilliant is an understatement for Robin. Brilliant is an understatement. I really want us, we all have talked about different ways in which we struggle with this work. What I wanted to both get the panel to talk about, and hopefully some audience members, are what are examples of either people, experiences, or other types of specific examples of people creating space, policy, or examples of yourself helping out someone be able to deal with these intersectional identities. And I'll give a really great example. Springfield Pride has been a place. I was privileged enough to get elected to city council and become the first openly gay city councilor in Springfield. But the truth was, for a lot of the work I did, people asked me to be relatively invisible about who I was. That I could be really great on economic justice issues, and people gave me shit for that. I could be really great on sometimes being on people of color issues, which they gave me lots of shit on that. But part of it was like, they were allowed openly to ask me have I ever worn high heels, which, not that I would object to it, I just can't walk in high heels. I was asked about my partners, my sex life became okay to make jokes about. And we're talking about people you know and you have elected made me always uncomfortable because anything I did was seen through that lens. And until I was able to be a part of Springfield Pride, where all those things put together, for once I was in a group of people who said, it's okay that you're both fabulous and progressive, that you're, even though we don't like politicians, that you're a politician, but you're also a regular person, that you're a little academic sometimes, and a little grassroots. And they really created a space for me to be myself. And it was one of the first times that all of those things meant something, and all those things were able to come to fruition. And so our pride is an example of the safety they created for me, that I can be all of those things. So before I go, thank you to Springfield Pride for creating a home for me, a home away from home. But how can we give examples of places where we have felt safe, where people acknowledge us, or policies or programs that gave us the ability to be our full selves? Is that too complicated? Is that good? Does that make sense as a question? Does anyone want to start with the panel? Does anyone want to turn? Please come on down.
Get out into my community and see what was happening and where there was the most need, and that was kind of where I landed. And it was the kind of situation where, I was approached, and it was the immense one, because there aren't a lot of people who look like you. If you're a teen girl who's masculine identified, where are your role models? Because they're not on TV. And then what you see in mainstream isn't always positive. So I walk around knowing that I am a living, breathing representation of the positivity that can exist, in the life of a gay youth. There is hope, there's a future, you can have that. That being said, now that I'm in Springfield and I'm coming to a lot of these events, it's like, okay, well, how can I take what I have learned and experienced, in Connecticut with True Colors and put that here? So that's, what I've seen so far, I love it, it's great. I've networked and made some, really great connections and friends. Is there a lot of work that needs to be done? Yes. Going back to your first question about the intersectionality of your identity. What do you do when you're a masculine identified female? You have two little girls, and you happen to be black, and you're a woman. And it's like, my identity, pretty much in my own life, is transparent. Somebody else makes me aware of who I am. When I get pulled over by the cops, because they thought they pulled over a black male. And then my life becomes that of maybe my little brother who is a black male. Or when I go into the grocery store on my lunch break, I forget that I went out the house that morning in a dress shirt and a tie and slacks. But it's the looks of the people in my community that help me to remember who I am. When I go to events for my daughter, the band, if you're a mom or one of the kids in the band, stand up. If you're a dad or one of the kids in the band, stand up. I never sit down.
I love it.
Because I'm a single mom. So on Mother's Day, I would get breakfast. On Father's Day, I want a grill. So it's things like that, because I don't wake up in the morning and say, okay, well, am I going to be black today first? Am I going to be lesbian today first? I don't know. Somebody else makes you aware of who you are. Even though we don't have to push our own identities. Robin, you mentioned your privilege. And I think one of the biggest issues in getting anywhere progressive when you're talking about people who are oppressed, the people who do the oppressing, whether intentionally or not, have to admit that they have that power. You have to know the privilege that you have, and you have to admit that you have it, and by virtue of admitting that you have it, you also have to admit that there's somebody that doesn't. And until that happens on race, on sexuality, on gender, on any of those type of issues, you're not going to get anywhere. You have to first admit that you have this, and that you walk through the world and people aren't going to see you the same way that they see somebody else.
Danica, did you want to say something? I like your shirt, by the way.
Thank you.
Where'd you get it from?
Springfield Pride.
Available online, right?
Yep. Available at springfield.pride.org.
There.
Or in the hall.
And in the hallway.
was a young transgender girl at the age of 6. And growing up in a community that was totally against the LGBTQI community at the time was very difficult. I had to dodge bullets, basically. And coming out, not to myself, but my parents, was a challenge in its own, especially a religious family and a Roman Catholic Muslim family. My story is that, my take is that coming out is just not enough for those who are privileged, you know. Even for those who are privileged when I was younger, had an easier life. I had a very hard life growing up, and it was a very poor life, yes, but it wasn't easy. I had more of a hard time getting someone to accept me for who I am and who I was identified as, than for one, you know, for someone identifying me outright was who I am. My situation is that I'm a lesbian woman also, and I find in this community, in the United States, not in the whole United States, but eastern part of the United States, that in the lesbian community, there is a problem accepting other lesbians coming out of, whether it be a transgender person or someone coming out of a marriage married to a man. If you're a woman who's been with a guy and you get divorced or whatever, and you become a you come out as a lesbian, you're more accepted than someone who's transgender and who said, I am a lesbian. It's like we are not part of that community, and other lesbians pointed out to you that way. It's not a hatred thing, you know. And the thing is that, you know, transgender women should not be lesbians. We should be part of all the straight community, like all trans women are. And it's not. We are a diverse community. And our community, that's what the pride flag symbolizes: diversity, pride. A quote, I went to Harvard Milk High School. I was fortunate to graduate from his high school. And one of his quotes was in one of his lectures I wrote at Harvard Milk High School, and it was directed to the gay and lesbian community way back in the 60s, before the revolution even began, you know. And it was directed directly towards gay and lesbian, about our transgender brothers and sisters. And it says, when we begin to evoke and destroy our own community, our own pride, right, we begin to evoke and destroy our own selves. Right? And they say, and continue going and saying that when you look up to the pride flag and you destroy a part of your community who is a member of our community, you can't look at a pride flag and say, I have pride, because then you have no right to that pride. So what I'm saying is that we need more diversity towards the trans community in Massachusetts. I noticed on the flyer you have someone who's representing the trans community who's supposed to be out there. They're not. In the future, if you don't have any alternates, I'm always available.
Well, thank you for that offer, Danica.
Okay, I'd say a place where I could go that made me feel more accepted in my community was Outnow. And before Outnow, and even now, it's still very hard, you know, to find that acceptance. I mean, touching on what Tisha said, I leave my house every day in the morning going to work, and it's natural for me. Everything I do, from my mascara, to my skinny jeans, to my low-cut V t-shirt, that's just natural for me. And I don't notice, these things until I get stares. I don't notice these things until, I walk on the bus and I hear, oh my God, look at his jeans. It's easier since I found out now, because I can sashay by and it's like, fuck you. You love this ass, but it's still very hard, and I wanted to say a lot more and I forgot, so, okay, I'm done.
So, when I approached sort of this topic, it's interesting in terms of sort of, I live and I work in a community which is not the most accepting of gender roles. I've been on with backcountry farm boys, good old boys, and it's interesting when you're in a community and you hear. I think it was just constantly one thing for me as being an ally was the importance of sticking up for people that you yourself are comfortable and you yourself are good people and that can create great people. I know being in it work I've even just this summer was working with certain people would say things like, oh, that's so gay, implying that, a negative connotation, not saying that it was, gay in the sense that it was, two men, in love. It was, they were saying it as though, like, and they would say things like, oh, no, I don't mean it like gay in that sense, I mean it gay as in bad. And I'm like, let's face it, that's not what that term means, and you are clearly using it wrong, and in yourself you just look ignorant. And so I think what was important is to create that community, and when recognizing and seeing a negative facet of the community, to say, point it out and say, no, that's not right. Equally, I remember being at a rock climbing facility and having someone say something to the effect of, oh, don't be a pussy, and it was just like, no, you're using that wrong. You're taking female anatomy and making it into a negative connotation. And obviously you're gonna get the, well, that's not what I mean. I'm just joking. It's like, no, you're clearly using this phrase wrong, and your joking is offensive. I'm offended, and so I think in a sense, where can we find places that foster that sense of security? It's like we create these places. We have to make these places. And in that sense, that's all I kind of say.
No, I can just talk.
Oh, go ahead.
All I want to say is that I want to thank everybody who put together this event, everybody who's on the panel, and everybody who's spoken from the audience, because I have learned a lot today, and thank you.
In a great segue, I want to invite our panel, and if there's anyone else in the audience, and if you keep it short, to say some parting words about pride, being proud of who you are, and being proud in Springfield. So that's one question. And if you give some parting words to folks who also make it some pride. I can continue me to start, or are you all feeling good? All right.
Well, I think what Austin shared was a great example of using your privileged position as an insider to actually challenge it, right? Because it is easier, to push against something when you're not the target of it. And I guess in the spirit of thinking about how you create that community and how you take those courageous stands, one place where two really powerful identities intersect for me is my class and my race. So I grew up poor. I grew up with a lot of shame, humiliation, homelessness, and I also always knew I was white, and that made me better than other people. And that to be poor and to be white is not the same as to be poor and a person of color. And so now, when I have those moments when I'm around people of a different class status than me, right? You cannot look at me and know that I grew up poor, and I'm in a middle class world, and something racist or homophobic is said, and I want to speak up, but I'm intimidated based on my internalized class inferiority, right? Maybe they're smarter than me, because that's one of the messages I got as a poor person, is that you're stupid, you're dirty too. And so it's truly a feeling of inferiority that's keeping me silent, but in practice, it's upholding my privilege, because that silence maintains white solidarity and makes me look like a team player and protects my race privilege. So when I speak up to challenge it, I am simultaneously healing the lie that I'm stupid, because that's a lie. And so that's a powerful move. And I'm using my privilege as a white person to further forth someone else's position. And so for me, it's just been fabulous, to use a word of the day, a way to use all of those identities to help create that community.
Pride message?
Pride messaging.
She's proud to be with you. Was that true? Is that your pride message?
Yeah.
Question.
That's pretty good.
I think that's a good pride message. How do I wrap that in a pride bow? I'm proud of myself when I speak up and I challenge my internalized class person. I'm totally proud of myself when I speak from a privileged place, but I use it to challenge oppression, not to protect my privilege. That makes me proud. And
I'm proud of myself when I can find the strength to speak through that oppression. You know, the oppression that is around me every day. So, yay, pride.
I'd have to say that I'm proud when I can enter a community such as this and know that we are different, and in that sense of difference, that diversity, that there's greatness from that. There's greatness from, you know, various components that are able to work in symbiosis. And I think that's a beautiful thing, and I think that's something that is continuously evolving and something that should be fostered, and it's beautiful.
So I was thinking as some people were talking, so you know, the movement building that I'm involved in is very much around economic justice and moving forward in an economy that works for people and not profiting corporations. And you know, we talk a lot about like housing and foreclosure, and one of the things that we really strive to think about is, you know, when we talk about people losing their homes, it's not just, you know, everybody in Springfield. We call it like it is, right? It's poor folks, it's women of color who are targeted, it's queer folks, it's single mothers, it's, you know, we have to name those things. We have to name those things in our work. We can't run none of these movements, right? We can't have a movement for civil rights without naming the fact that there's some people who have far less civil rights than other people, and that the lack of civil rights impacts us more. We can't have an economic justice movement without really naming that. And you know, I think that as I've started to be here in Springfield, you know, specific to Springfield, I think that the pride, I think what I'm proud of and is to see that starting to happen more and more. To see these movements finding these intersections, but also naming, like really naming, you know, this isn't just some broad, you know, everybody's included, but we have to name that, you know, just because everybody's included doesn't mean that everybody feels the impacts of the oppression or of our uplift and our resistance and us rising up equally, right? And that in rising up, we also have to be conscious about who it is that should be leading the way, right? And that, you know, the folks in the communities and in our communities that are most impacted by the things that we're fighting against, those are the leaders. Those are the folks that we follow. And learning how to, you know, for me, in a lot of places, learning how to try and step behind and follow that lead, you know, I think is going to be a lifelong challenge of learning how to do that. And so that's really exciting, and I'm really proud to be a part of that.
Mic check is still on. It's still working? Yep. Okay. I would like to say, what I would say, you need to challenge you need to challenge other people on their bullshit. And that's not what it is. Whether or not you're in the oppressed, when I went to see people, I'm like, hello, why are you calling me gay? What is a bad thing? Or why are there women talking? You can't just talk about your place of privilege. Let's talk about in your more oppressed places. Also, as a man knows, I challenge him on why is there no interpreting? I know you won there, you won. And why can't you go to more events? Or is it going to get to you? Why there's steps everywhere? And then hold on, and we talk about equally, with Holly. And you can't always, just because I rallied with you on racial justice or whatever, doesn't mean I'm not challenging you on whatever other stuff you're deciding to pull, and whoever else you're saying, because those people belong in these spaces too. It's not everyone who can walk, who loves the pride, everyone who is heterosexual, all men just go to race month, everyone who needs to go. But what I'm meeting is all white people. This doesn't happen. And people, oh, I didn't know you were that way. People said it to me. I was like, what does that mean? You know? And then they just back up like 3 feet. And don't talk to me for a while. This is what happens. But I think we need to challenge every space we have. If you see something screwed up, interrupt it. You have the power to do that. Because those people are working. And you can call them on, if they're also oppressed, you can call them on their behavior you don't approve of. And you should do that frequently. Like as frequently as possible.
I think the most beautiful thing about community is that we can challenge with love. And I welcome that this community, I'm sorry. Oh, come on down. Sorry about that. No,
I just want to ask the people here today and to share this information. My daughter has been the president of her GSA club out in Wilbraham High School. And
using my
the Wilbraham High School, Minnetonka. My daughter's been the president of her GSA club this year, but she's been working with GSA for 3 years now. And they almost dropped the club. So I think I wanted to let people know that, you know, we experienced just a few months ago with, I don't know if the child that threatened her, we calling her a faggot for 4 days, was a bully or just, you know, having a problem with people. But I think that, like, even our community, which we, you know, people think it doesn't happen there and nobody really wants to acknowledge it, that it would help if people from LGBTQ and GSA and in our Pride can call their local schools, especially in their area, and try to offer some an hour of their time to the high schools or middle schools for the GSA clubs to be a guest speaker, to help with answering questions and giving more information to the teens because they really need it. You know, there's not a lot of role models and a lot of support, I think, in the schools. So definitely want to put that out there. If people can get more involved or share that, bring their information, bring their, you know, their pamphlets and all their, you know, meeting times and supports like the Outnow program. My daughter can't wait to go visit tomorrow. Thank you.
Let's exchange information, and we'll make sure that we bring pride to Minnetonka too. How's that? Wait, folks, come on down if you have a... And I really do want to thank you for being brave enough to name that. Is your daughter here? Can we all give her a round of applause? Just know that you have a community here. We love what you're doing. We're proud of what you're doing. And while you may feel like you're alone, you're in the company of people who care, love, and support you. And whatever you need, we will try to provide. Thank you for the fight that you're taking on.
She was on the second floor.
Okay, my name is Brenda Lopez. I'm a longtime resident of Springfield. I wanted to say, whenever these issues come up, I think that we don't make the connection. We don't circle it. You're talking about race, class, culture, gender. There's such a connection and around all of that oppression. And sometimes we look at our own oppression and we really don't look at the other things. So that if in fact we talk about being allies, then we also have to be allies across our oppression. I think that that's difficult sometimes because we don't see who are the people that we can align ourselves with. How safe are they? As we, as gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender communities, are more and more out in the public eye, then it becomes easier and easier for others to be there. As allies come out and speak their truth, then it becomes easier for others who can be allies to speak their truth, to challenge the oppressive statements, and not feel that we always have to be protective, as she pointed out, of our position, of our privilege, not wanting to lose these people that we know have racism, classism, sexism, homophobia as a part of their daily dialogue. I have many experiences. I tell people I'm an old woman. And so, I have many, many experiences in looking at community. One of the things I'll tell you is that many, many years ago, I went to a group for lesbians of color. And so I went to the group and I said, we're talking, and I said, well, I'm a lesbian that's married to a man. And they're like, well, no, you can't be a lesbian. So I'm like, well, what does that mean? What does that mean? What are you saying to me? You're excluding me because in this group, in this community of women, you're telling me I don't belong. And that was very hurtful and painful to me. So again, it made me flounder for a while. I floundered. I said, well, is it true what they said? Do I not know who I am? Have I made a mistake about me? Maybe they know better than I. So I just stood back for a while. And then, little by little, I went back into that community. And I always reminded them that this is what you said to me. How many other women have you chased away with your words? Words are very powerful. And for some folk, they are the most powerful weapon that can be used against us. Currently, I identify as bisexual, and I'm always just going to be Brenda. I'm very proud that as old as I am, and as youthful as my spirit is, I will always, until the day I draw my last breath, speak truth to power. And I want us all to be proud enough to self-identify and never, ever let anyone else decide who we are. Never allow anyone to look at you and make decisions about you. And if you know who you are, then no one can ever do that. Thank you.
Yeah. After this speaker, who we just discovered, I'll make 2 announcements. They will have our beautiful entertainment lead us out. But what I really want to make sure is that this is the kind of things that Pride can do, is that it brings people out from places that we may not think, and create new allies and new family members and new community. So I wanted you to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then I wanted the panel to give her some love, some advice, some thoughts. And then we'll make some announcements, to let the Rainy Brains take us home, and then all have a wonderful week and end our exciting club. So if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've been doing and what you worked on, would be great.
Hello, my name is Isabella. I'm 17, and I'm from Wilbraham, and I just graduated from Minnetonka Regional High School. And last summer, I did a couple days of training at UMass with the GSA network, and that was really exciting and a fun time. I learned a lot. In my school, there is kind of a lack of acceptance of diversity. A lot of racism and homophobia in my school, almost like every day I see homophobia. My friends, my female friends are lesbian, and they used to get picked on a lot in middle school from the kids who were seen as popular in their school. I was new to that school in 8th grade, I believe, and at one of our dances, my friend kept getting picked on by this kid. He kept calling her, names, making fun of her because she was open as a lesbian, and I really got fed up with what he was saying, and I stood up for her, and she's been one of my best friends since then. And I'm really excited to be here tonight and see all of you. And so I'm kind of nervous up here.
So does the panel have any advice for this brilliant, amazing, brave young woman?
Really short, keep doing what you're doing. Exactly what you're doing. Standing up, speaking out, being you, naming it, being willing to just stand up. Maud likes to do this, call people up on stage, and we keep doing it. Because it's people like you that, somebody said speak truth to power, and you're the one that's gonna, really make the change happen. So this is the pride, right? This is the pride statement right here, seeing you up here. So.
I wish I was as brave as you when I was 18. I wish I was. I wasn't, but I wish I was. And the thing, you couldn't be who you are at the age you are. It's amazing to me. I'm so grateful and I'm alive to see that.
Hi, Isabella. Hi. You're so strong, and I commend you for that. I mean, you're not much younger than I, but what you're doing is great. And I just want to say, Outnow, we'd love to have you. Come, bring your friends, please do. I'm going to talk to you after this.
Can we get a standing ovation? Folks, without your financial support, we cannot make all of our events 500 people show up over 8 days of events, and we're still not over. One more day. So if you can find it in your heart or your pocketbook, wallet, or whatever you use to carry your financial resources, please make a donation. If you can't make a donation, please get some swag. We have t-shirts, cookies, water, buttons. We have so much swag, it's crazy. So if you would like some swag, please purchase that. We'd love to have you. There's also a 50-50 raffle. Please feel free to be a part of that 50-50 raffle. Without your support, we can't make that.
Say what the prize is.
What's the prize?
Flags.
Oh, great, yeah, that's even better. So if you win the 50-50 raffle, we will give you one of the flags from Main Street. That's a big deal now, folks, because they are not cheap. So buy some tickets, and you get an inaugural, second inaugural, these are the first ones we've had like this. So inaugural Springfield Pride flag. That's pretty dope. So if you could do that, that'd be wonderful. And with that being said, did I miss something?
How much are the tickets?
How much are the tickets?
$1. $1.
The tickets are $1.
Ahmad, are you gonna, or I'd like to put out that you do this type of event again next year, because this was so powerful, and we need more open, honest, just be able to speak it, conversations. So, round of applause for Ahmad.
So the truth is, a round of applause should be for the Springfield Pride Committee, because they're out now. They let me even do some crazy things, but together, we put off style, and they make it possible. Can we invite, sorry, I was supposed to do lots of announcements, but it was two. We'd love for you to sign up to be part of Pride. We have an email list, we love board members, but it's a commitment, it's a relationship, it's a year relationship. We'd love for you to sign up on our email list, be a part of it. We're crazy, but we're fun. We're not always effective, but we get a lot of work done. And we'd love to have you. Just be ready for the diversity, the love. We'd love for you to be part of our committee. If you are ready for the work and the battle, we'd love to have you. And with that being said, can we have the most amazing, incredible, dynamic, raging grannies to the front. And they're going to bring us home the roof. Thank you everyone for coming out. Thank you all for being here. Much love. And thank you panelists for being here. We appreciate you. And if you want to get up, you can. And come enjoy the show from the front. Or you can stay here, wherever you choose. And whenever the granny's ready, they will let us know.
Celebrate the ruling which says there should be no fooling.
You're doing